What does it really mean to be blessed? Our world says blessing is about wealth, power, and success. But Jesus opens his kingdom manifesto with a shocking declaration. The truly blessed are the poor in spirit, the merciful, the pure in heart, the persecuted. Let's discover what blessing looks like in the eyes of God. Imagine a king stepping onto a stage, not in a grand palace, but on a simple hillside. A crowd gathers around him, not of the rich and famous, but of fishermen, farmers, and the forgotten. They are the nobodies of their day. They are weary, they are worried, and they are wondering if God has forgotten them. And then the king begins to speak, but the words that come from his mouth are stunning. They are revolutionary. He doesn't talk about gaining power or accumulating wealth. Instead, he speaks of being poor, of mourning, of being gentle. He flips our worldly understanding of success on its head. This king is Jesus, and his words, known as the Beatitudes, are an invitation into a different kind of kingdom with a different kind of blessing. He begins with the word, blessed. It's a word we use casually, perhaps at the end of a letter or when someone sneezes, but the word Jesus used was so much richer. It doesn't just mean happy, it means to be approved by God. Jesus begins his sermon with a statement that must have shocked his listeners. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Poor? How could being poor be a blessing? The people listening to him knew poverty all too well. The gnawing hunger, the constant uncertainty, the feeling of being overlooked and powerless. They longed for riches, not poverty. But Jesus adds a crucial phrase, poor in spirit. He's not necessarily talking about the state of your bank account, but the state of your soul. To be poor in spirit is to recognize your spiritual bankruptcy before a holy God. It's to come to the end of yourself. It's the moment you stop pretending you have it all together. It's the honest admission that you are not strong enough, not good enough, not wise enough to navigate this life on your own. It is the opposite of the proud, self-sufficient spirit our world so often celebrates. The world tells you to believe in yourself, to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Jesus says the first step to true blessing is to realize you don't have any bootstraps. It's an emptying of self. It's holding up your empty hands to God and saying, I have nothing, I need you. I am completely dependent on your grace. It is the posture of a beggar who knows he has no other source of help. This is why this beatitude comes first. Right after telling us to be poor, Jesus says something equally strange to our modern ears. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the sad. Blessed are the heartbroken. The world tells us to avoid pain at all costs. Chase happiness, numb your sorrows, distract yourself, put on a brave face, pretend everything is okay. But Jesus says, there is a blessing to be found right in the middle of our mourning. He doesn't promise a life without sorrow, but he does promise comfort within it. He meets us in our tears, he enters our grief. This mourning can take many forms. First, there is the mourning over our own sin. When we are truly poor in spirit, we begin to see our sin for what it is. We see how it has broken our relationship with God and how it has hurt others. This realization brings a deep and genuine sorrow. It's not just regret at being caught, it's a true grief over our own brokenness. This is the kind of mourning that leads to repentance, to turning away from our sin and toward God's mercy. And the promise is beautiful. When we mourn our sin, God doesn't respond with condemnation. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. You know, the word meek really has a bit of an image problem in our culture. We tend to think of meekness as weakness. We picture someone who is timid, spineless, a doormat for others to walk all over. But honestly, that's not at all what Jesus meant. Biblical meekness is not weakness, it is strength under control. Think of a powerful, wild stallion that has been tamed. The horse hasn't lost any of its strength, but now that strength is submitted to the will of its master. It is gentle, controlled, and purposeful. That, right there, is meekness. Its power surrendered to God. The meek person isn't someone who's afraid to speak up. They're someone who has surrendered their right to have their own way. They aren't driven by ego, ambition, or the need to win every argument. They have entrusted their lives, their rights, and their reputation into God's hands. Because they trust God to be their defender, they don't have to be defensive. Because they trust God to be their promoter, they don't have to promote themselves. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled, as we read in Matthew chapter 5, verse 6. Just think about the last time you were truly hungry or thirsty. Not just the, I could go for a snack sort of feeling, but a deep, desperate craving. Hunger and thirst are powerful, all-consuming drives. When you are really thirsty, nothing else matters but finding water. Jesus uses this intense physical longing to describe a spiritual desire. The blessed person is the one who craves righteousness with that same level of intensity. They have a deep, passionate, and persistent desire to see God's righteousness in their own lives and in the world around them. This hunger for righteousness has two sides. First, it's a personal hunger. It's a deep desire to be right with God. The person who is poor in spirit and mourns their sin now longs to be made holy. They want their thoughts, their words, their actions. They're not content with their own sinfulness. They want to be free from gossip, impatience, selfishness. This is not a quest for self-perfection to earn God's favor, but a passionate desire that flows from a heart that has already been touched by His grace. Second, it's a hunger for justice in the world. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Mercy is one of the most beautiful words in any language. To be merciful is to show compassion and forgiveness towards someone when it is within your power to punish or harm them. It's giving someone a second chance when they don't deserve it. It's withholding a judgment that is rightly theirs. It's looking at someone who has hurt you and choosing to offer grace instead of demanding revenge. Mercy is love in action, especially toward those who have failed. It is the heartbeat of the gospel. We, who were deserving of judgment, received overwhelming mercy from God through Jesus Christ. The merciful person then has been so deeply impacted by God's mercy that it overflows into relationships. They can't help but be merciful because they are so aware of how much mercy they need themselves every single day. They remember the parable Jesus told of the servant forgiven an unpayable debt who then refused to forgive a fellow servant a tiny amount. The merciful person understands they have been forgiven the unpayable debt. How then could they refuse to forgive the small debts others owe them? Their mercy is a response to God's mercy. This mercy shows itself in very practical ways. It's forgiving the friend who betrayed your trust. It's being patient with the coworker who constantly makes mistakes. It's choosing not to gossip about someone who has wronged you. It's giving to someone in need without asking for anything in return. It's looking for the best in people instead of assuming the worst. It's refusing to keep a record of wrongs. Mercy is costly. It requires us to absorb a hurt instead of retaliating. It requires us to let go of our right to be angry. It is a difficult and supernatural work. The promise attached to this beatitude is both a gift and a principle. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. This beatitude goes deeper than all the others, past our actions into the very core of our being, our heart. In the Bible, the heart represents the center of our will, our thoughts, our desires, and our motivations. It is the control room of our life. To be pure in heart does not mean to be sinlessly perfect. If that were the standard, no one would qualify. Rather, it means to have an undivided heart. It means to be single-minded in our devotion to God. It's a heart that is not trying to serve two masters, God, money, or God and self. It is a heart whose ultimate desire is to please and honor God above all else. A pure heart is a sincere and authentic heart. It is a heart without hypocrisy. The person with a pure heart is the same on the inside as they appear on the outside. They are not wearing a mask of spirituality while hiding a heart full of greed, lust, or ambition. Their motives are clean. They serve. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Notice that Jesus does not say, blessed are the peace lovers or blessed are the peacekeepers. Many people love peace and would prefer to avoid conflict. A peacekeeper might ignore a problem or smooth things over just to keep things quiet, even if the underlying issue isn't resolved. But a peacemaker is something different. A peacemaker is proactive. They actively step into situations of conflict, tension, division, and work to bring about reconciliation and wholeness. They are agents of restoration. They build bridges between people who are estranged. This work of peacemaking begins with the most important peace of all, peace with God. The ultimate peacemaker is Jesus himself, who, through his death on the cross, reconciled a sinful humanity to a holy God. As his followers, our first act of peacemaking is to share this good news with others, inviting them to be reconciled to God. We become ambassadors of reconciliation, carrying the message of peace that has so profoundly changed our own lives. We help others find the peace with God that is the foundation for all other peace. But this calling extends to our human relationships as well. Peacemakers work to heal broken relationships in their families. The final beatitude is perhaps the most jarring of all. After describing this beautiful, gentle, merciful life, Jesus concludes with a stark warning and a surprising blessing. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. He goes on to say, "Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven." This is the ultimate test of the upside-down nature of God's kingdom. Blessed when you are insulted, blessed when you are rejected. It's crucial to notice the reason for this persecution, because of righteousness and because of me. The Beatitudes are more than lofty ideals, they are the DNA of the kingdom, the character of Christ himself, and as we walk with him, the Spirit begins shaping us into these very qualities. You are blessed, not because the world says so, but because God calls you his own. This is a blessing for those who are living out the character of the previous Beatitudes. If you found this message helpful, share with someone today.